me, I want you to maybe expound upon a little bit. It's not all been fun either, right? There's been some stress along the way.
Hell no.
Right. Can you maybe just talk about the process, the state credit tax film, whatever that thing is? Can you talk about that for a second?
So every state that does entertainment has a tax credit, right? So when all the movies and VFX and CGI, they're done in Canada, because the tax credit is like 40% of your budget they'll give back to you, right? So that was part of what we were trying to do, is figure out, hey, do we stay here? Because we have a film tax credit that's 25%, but it's also capped at 12 million. Georgia has no cap. And the $4 billion they spend on there, $2 billion of it goes back into the city. Ours is 12 million. Theirs is 4 effing billion. What am I doing here? You know what I mean? So I went to, let me go back. The woman that runs Nickelodeon and Paramount is from here. She went to MICA, and she went to Baltimore School for the Arts. Her name is Ramsey. And they don't call her or talk to her, but I know her. And I found a girl at MICA who made something that looked like a preschool show, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna sign you to a development deal. And I signed her, and I showed it to Ramsey, and Ramsey said, great, we're gonna put this on Nickelodeon. I was like, great, right? So we made the pilot, and the first thing Ramsey says is, if we pick this up to series, what's the tax credit in Maryland? And I never looked it up. Finally, I looked it up, and I realized that Maryland did not have animation in their film tax credit.
Oh, wow.
So I had to go to the Senate and go to Annapolis, and I basically said to them, I said, look, you have two choices. You can change this in the next 48 hours, or I move to New Jersey. And they changed it. So at least we have that, right? There's not a lot of money in it yet, but I do know that our governor, I want to say Westmore made a movie. Like, I want to say that. I want to say that he or his wife are really into media, and they want to build that business here in this part of the world. But as far as I'm concerned, we are the only company like ours for about 500 miles in every direction. You know what I mean? There's just us. So if there's more of us, then that makes more sense. But for the state to put a bunch of money into the tax credit for one company, that's tough. You know what I mean? And I'm only here because I like it here. There's not a whole bunch of advantages for me being here right now. But my kids went to McDonough, and I like this part of the country. So that's why I'm here.
The best city in the world.
So looking ahead, I'm pretty sure you have very big visions for what Outlook becomes. You like it here. I appreciate that. I think all of us in this room like it here too. Love it here. But is it fair to say that loving it doesn't necessarily make it eternally sustainable?
Yeah, so I will tell you this. The one thing I will say is, because my business is a square peg in a round hole, and that is the issue. The issue is not so much financing or funding, because that's the issue with every business. And we've had our problems, but we have raised a lot of money locally. I mean, 95% of the money we've raised has been within 20 miles of me, right? So we're happy about that. But I will tell you that what's hard for me, and I think what's hard for a lot of entrepreneurs is Baltimore has, or Maryland, or even the Mid-Atlantic has things they do well, right? Medical, cybersecurity, housing, right? And you show up with someone and say, hey, I make cartoons. And the people that want to help, and I'm being dead serious, CD or the city of Baltimore has invested in us, the state has given us money. When you fill out paperwork or try to explain it, they try to make it into what they're used to. And that I'm just like, I spend most of my day going, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. It don't like, funding a film is not the same as funding a low-income housing project. It's just not, right? When you try to have this conversation, it's supposed to go like this. It's supposed to go, look, rather than us go through all this paperwork, why don't you just turn on Netflix and watch my show? Let's do that, right? There's your proof of concept. Matter of fact, watch the other season of the show I made. Or better yet, watch it on Hulu, or watch a third season. Or you don't have, and they're looking for numbers and those kind of things in black and white, and I work in color, right? So that frustrates me more than anything else, is that part, is we're doing something that's never been done here, ever been done in this part of the world, right? And that's fine. I mean, that was gonna happen wherever my feet are, so I don't wanna brag about that stuff. But if I say, this is how it works, then this is how it works. It does not, the answer is not going to change. They keep asking me questions. The answer's here, and I get the question from all these places. I'm like, yes, we draw it. This is how it works. So that part has been the most frustrating part. The rest of it, we have a lot of support. People love what we do. I'll give you an example. The way VFX and animation students and CGI studios work is they're not full-time jobs. It is a freelance economy. But the state was like, nope, you're gonna make it full-time. I'm like, what am I gonna do with this character guy when he's done in 3 months? Like, I keep him for 4 years? What the fuck is this? So you wind up doing everything kind of backwards. You know what I mean? And that's been the fight. It's not funding. It's not funding. We can find funding. Right? We can find funding, but to get that funding, we have to explain things in ways that it does not work. You know what I mean?
Two of the themes that we're focusing on today that I just heard loud and clear over and over and over again is that obviously, if and when you want to bring your vision to reality, you may have to contend with the policies that undergird this space.
Yeah.
And you have to now step beyond yourself as an entrepreneur to then go become a policy advocate in some way, shape, or form.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has been, I spend most of my time, I'm directing our movie. I directed the TV show, and I spend most of my time filling out paperwork, more than I do looking at frames and animation and making creative decisions. It is a 24-hour job, and it's not supposed to be.
I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs in the room, like, yeah, that hits me. And then on the capital side, and I want to acknowledge this, and most of the entrepreneurs don't have social capital in the way that you do. You can pick up the phone and you can make the phone call, right?
Yes.
And even you still have to
Yes.
fight this hard, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So there's the policy side of it. Then there's the capital side of it. What I just heard loud and clear is that there's money in Baltimore.
Oh God. Oh God. There is.
But to get the money
Oh
to
God.
the thing, it's
Yeah.
a fight in itself.
Oh my Jesus, man.
All right. Okay, I just want to make sure that was.
I will say this in this room. Eventually, my company is going to be bought by a media company. That's going to happen. That's one of the reasons Sony's coming here, right? And I'm going to have to decide between Sony and Disney which way I go, right? And that's fine. But I have knocked on every door in this city, and I mean the big ones: Brown Capital and Trevor Pryce and all these places. And I told I have a main group of investors, cybersecurity, family office, and the reason they invested, and they've invested a lot of money, is because they're Star Wars nerds. And also, and when I met them, their story was, hey, we've always wanted to, invest in, Wonder Woman or Batman, one of these movies. And I go, Warner Brothers doesn't want your money. And I can walk on a Warner Brothers lot, you cannot, right? So they decided, we'll put our money into you instead of, and so they've done that. And I told him this, and this, I'm just gonna say it. At some point, when we are ultra successful, I'm gonna rub everybody's nose in it. I'm just going to. And it's not even a question of the people that said no. It's a question of why you said no. You know what I mean? If you said no, if you said no because, hey, this is just not our thing, or your movie sucks, I can get with that. But to not take the time, and this is the worst. I'll give you the worst part. The worst excuse I've ever heard when I show it to people, and I bring it to my office, I put it on the TV, I sit on my couch, and I go, "This is stuff we do." They go, "I don't know anything about movies," and I go, "Have you ever been to a movie theater?" And they go, "Of course." I said, "What made you go to that movie theater?" I saw a commercial. The movie looked cool. Does my movie look cool? That's all it takes. Don't ask me for the. Sony's coming and bringing their CFO. He's not coming to look at my books. That's what people think. He's coming to see how we're able to make things at the price we make them. That's what he's looking for. My investors, especially my institutional investors, and you gotta get your books in order. I said, believe me, they're not coming to look at this. They're gonna look at what's on the screen, and does what I have on the screen compete with what they have on the screen. I was in LA 2 months ago. My friend is the president of Fox. He's the president of Fox Films. And I showed him the first 3 minutes of our movie. We made 3 minutes of it, and I was like, hey, Steve, I'm gonna show you 3 minutes. So I showed him 3 minutes of my movie. He countered by showing me the first 15 minutes of Planet of the Apes. What am I supposed to do with that? You know what I mean? So I was like, oh, okay, so this is what I'm being judged against. So I went home and threw the 3 minutes out. I told my staff, start over, and we started over again. So that's kind of the way. That's kind of the way that I look at it. You know what I mean? And we're not going to be great on the curve because our movie's not going to be great on the curve because it was made in Baltimore by first-time filmmakers. It's going to be great at like Planet of the Goddamn Apes. So I saw 15 minutes of it a month and a half before it came out, and I was like, holy cow, we have a lot of work to do. So.
You said something about there's a little bit of vision casting here around what the future looks like, right? You're gonna get bought out by somebody, right? And that will be a good news for you and all the folks involved. I have a question though.
Yeah.
Do we have a chance in convincing whoever buys you to keep it in Baltimore?
Yeah, so the reason they're buying it because it's in Baltimore.
Oh, wow.
They're not buying it to move me to LA. It's too expensive, right? So what our vision is, or our reason to exist, is because CGI and VFX movies and movies that everybody in this room sees, they cost about $1 million a minute. That's the price, right? Planet of the Apes costs $160 million to make. I'll give you this: Avatar 2. My buddy wrote the check. It was $400 million to make that movie. That's the truth. I will tell you that if they had given my studio the plates, and what the plates are, what a plate is the actual recordings of the actors. If they'd have given us the plates, we could have done it for 50, and had something very, very, very similar to that. So that's why they're coming here. They're not coming here to say, hey, pick up and move your stuff to LA. They're trying to get out of LA. You know what I mean? So right now, I'll tell you right now, the tax credit thing, West Virginia is about to be the next place where Hollywood goes. But yeah, West Virginia is throwing their entire state budget at content because they have land and they have coal, right? So their film credit is uncapped, and it's going to be like 50%. So Paramount is moving to West Virginia.
So we have work to do and compete.
Funny enough, and I said this when I started my studio. I said what can happen in Maryland is not what can happen in West Virginia, because West Virginia's a bigger place and there's more space to build big studios and big boxes and sound stages and whatnot. I said, what can happen in Maryland is what happens in Vancouver, which is all computer work, which is what we do, right? So everything we make is in a computer. And that CGI VFX thing, because there's an art school here, there's a lot of kids that know some of it. We've been teaching it a long time. Like me and my staff have been teaching it. So that is possible. What West Virginia is doing is not possible. It's just not. But again, you can shoot Thor in front of green screens. Somebody has to make him look like he can fly, right? And that's what we do. That's what we know how to do. And I think that business can actually strive here in Baltimore. I truly believe that.
As we wind down, one, thank you for your vision, for your work, and for continuing to fight to be in Baltimore. I imagine if we took this exact same conversation and went into commercial real estate, if we took this conversation and went into manufacturing, food and beverage, or other products, we'd be having the same conversations. Because at the end of the day,
it's agnostic, I think.
It's just, we have a lot of creative people in this city.
Yeah.
Some with a lot of resources and some without a lot, and trying to find a way to bring those folks together to make sure that the vision that we have for a city is one that actually includes everyone with all of the strengths is a challenge for us.
I'll give you a story. So my IP, Killer Party, was a book first, right? And it was published by the same publishers of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. So what they do when they publish a book is they send you on these tours around the country, and they sent me to Burbank, right? And I've spent a lot of time in Burbank. That's where Disney is. That's where Universal and Warner Brothers is. And I went to a middle school in Burbank, and I'm sitting in a room like this, a bunch of kids, and I'm showing my book up on the thing, and I'm showing the pictures and all kind of thing. And one kid raises his hand. They said, "Any questions?" The kid raises his hand. He says, "Do you know Kevin Feige?" Kevin Feige is the guy that runs Marvel. I said, "I don't know him." He said, "Oh, okay," and he put his hand out. And then the next kid says, "Do you know anybody at Marvel?" And I said, "Yeah, of course I know some of them." He said, "Okay," and the teacher had to step in because it was about to get unruly. And the teacher says, "Okay, everybody, no more questions about Mr. Pryce's book." So the next 10 questions about the book and whatnot. And the teacher goes, "Last question." A girl raises her hand. She says, "I don't have a question. My uncle works at Marvel." And that set off a bomb, right? Because these kids were all going, "My brother worked on Captain America, and my dad's an accountant at this," you know what I mean? But that's where they live. So the point of the story is, to those kids, the stuff they watch and these big movies, they don't come from space. Their parents and their family work on those things, and they can reach out and touch those people. I also went to Exeter Academy in Philadelphia, which is a $60,000 a year private school. And those kids think the movies come from fucking space, right? So it's a matter of where you are. And where we are in my neighborhood, down the street, there's a plethora of kids. And someday, I'm gonna become their version of Kevin Feige, and they'll say, "Oh, Killer Party's made in that building down the street." And that's going to be the most impactful thing that we do. The movie will be seen in China, sure, but also be seen by the kids on President Street that live down the street from the studio. And every weekend, I work on the weekends because that's the time I get to nobody knocks on my door. But I see them riding their bikes in my parking lot. And one day, one of them said, "Hey, you're Trevor Pryce," and he rode off. And I was like, sure, right? So I think that's my vision for my company and what we do is, and we're starting to bring in young people into the studio. When I first started raising money, I'd always tell the same story. I'd say, "Hey, there's a little girl somewhere in West Baltimore. She's a great artist, and she doesn't know what to do and this kind of thing." And I would say that all the time, and people would be like, "Yeah, let's go find her." She walked in my office 2 months ago. I conjured her up out of thin air. And she walked in my office, and she was 16, and she's a fantastic artist. And I was like, "Where have you been?" Right? But now she's gonna work for us this summer.
Wow.
I can't think of a better way to wrap up this conversation because ultimately I appreciate where you just left us. This is not just about Trevor Pryce. This is not just about Outlook. It's about the children in Baltimore who can one day say, hey, that thing was made in Baltimore and I know exactly what building it was made in. Thank you so much, Trevor. I really appreciate
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
This is the part where I get to